Not quite sure what I have in store, but I'm excited about whatever it is. But it's great to be with you.
Okay, so what Ernie means by he's not quite sure what he has in store is because none of this is scripted. He doesn't have a list of questions in front of him, so he doesn't know where we're going to go tonight, but we're going to have a lot of good fun, and we're going to just talk through this. The other thing you should know is that if I were to introduce Ernie and read everything that he's done in a span of more than 30 years of his career, it would take the entire hour. So we're not going to do that. We're going to talk through it. We're going to talk about his amazing work that he's done from film. And also, he may not know I know this, he's also an amazing playwright. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. Didn't know I knew that, did you? So we're going to get right into it. Thank you again for your questions that you sent in beforehand. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. Again, reminder, put your questions in the chat and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. So let's just get right to it. Ernie Hudson, Ernie, thank you again for being here. Why don't you tell us what you're doing right here, right now? Here it is, 2020, when everybody, the entire country is sitting at home. So this is why this platform is so incredible for us now.
Yeah, I'm really discovering technology. For the first time, family members that I would wait a year to try and get a chance to see, I'm able to Zoom them all into a group and see them. And so I'm sort of taking advantage of some of this technology and still managing to do some interesting things work-wise. Jason Reitman, who directed and produced the new Ghostbusters coming up, they're doing a remake of The Princess Bride, and I was asked to participate in that. So there are a lot of really creative ways that people are using technology, and that's fun. Even though I've been asking for a time to just be home, to be with my wife, and just not have any place to go because I was getting on planes so much. I asked for that and I got it, not quite the way I imagined, but I'm enjoying it and waiting to go back to work. I'm excited about work. I always enjoy working, but I'm really looking forward to getting back to work. And yeah, life is good.
So your experience with Ghostbusters, every time I would imagine you walk down the street, somebody want to ask you a question about your role in Ghostbusters alongside some other amazing veteran actors at that time. Was that actually your breakout role?
Well, I don't know if I ever had a breakout role, at least not in my mind. A lot of things are happening in your life and you don't necessarily see it, even though it may be obvious to other people. I've always been trying to get a job. So for me, it was a job. I thought when the movie came out, because it was so successful, that it would be a big change in my career. That didn't happen, at least not the way I imagined. And so it was always a struggle, but I've always worked. I've been very blessed. I started acting in 1966, and I've been able to make a living at just acting. And I feel very, very fortunate, but it's always been, I'm a working actor. And Ghostbusters was one of the jobs, but it didn't transform my life. And suddenly I was sitting on a pile of money, and I have family, and I had to make a living. I've always been, like I said, a working actor.
Okay, so your role in Ghostbusters, I want to just stay with that for just a moment. Do you feel that particular role typecasted you in any way?
No, I don't think I've been typecast. In fact, I was one of those actors who probably hoped they would be typecast. A lot of my friends who are very successful action, actors or comedian actors, they have a certain thing that they do. I never had anything offered to me that way that was tailor-made for me. So I had to go in and get a job. If it was a comedy, I had to make them laugh. If it was a drama, I had to make them cry. I had to adjust. And so you get movies like The Hand That Rocks the Cradle. It's different than The Congo, or different than The Crow. I'm an actor, and my job is to tell a story. But a lot of people identify me with a lot of the police roles, even though most of the work I've done has not been that. But people see what they see. But for me, the fun of being an actor is you get a chance to explore other possibilities, other lives, and I've been very, very fortunate that way.
All right. We've got a lot of questions from some of our viewers, and I want to kind of dive into a few of those if we can.
Okay. I'll try to keep my answers short. I can run along for a long time. So, so.
You can run along for a long time. Well, I like
Yeah.
that. Absolutely. All right. Okay, so we have a question from Elena Abel. She wants to know, what is your favorite, and it disappeared on me. I'm so sorry. If we can get our question back up, but your favorite part about playing in the role with Grace and Frankie?
Well, I've been acting, like I said, for over 50 years. There are people I've been just blessed to get a chance to work, people that I've admired, I'm a fan of, people that I aspire to. I want to get to a certain level. And Jane Fonda, Lily Tomlin, Martin Sheen. These are people that I've admired. And so to get a chance to be in the same room with them, to be able to play with them, to be confident enough to know that I bring something to the table, that's a dream come true. I mean, the younger me could see me on the set of Grace and Frankie, I'd be like blown away. But I've also worked over the years with Betty Davis. I worked with Laurence Olivier. I've worked with a lot of people, amazing people, and Grace and Frankie. That's one of the shows that I'm just honored to be a part of.
Well, I remember when Grace and Frankie came out, it was fairly controversial and they weren't sure how successful it would be, but it's become pretty exceptionally successful. It touches on a lot of things regarding older people being in relationship, being in complicated relationship. Now,
Right.
you played a love interest for Lily Tomlin, and you played Jacob, the Yeah Man, which I love that line.
Yeah.
So was that originally how you were casted?
Yeah, well, originally, I think there was some interest in possibly being a love interest for Jane Fonda. That was at least what my manager, information he gave me. And then it said Lily Tomlin. And I had met Jane Fonda, but I didn't know Lily. And I wasn't sure how we're going to do this. You kind of, as an actor, you're meeting someone for the first time. But when I first met her, I fell in love with her. I mean, she's so amazing and kind. I mean, it's one thing the work and the acting, but what your spirit, just being a human being, she's so giving that it's been one of the joys of my life to be able to just to play with her. So yeah, and I look at that role because 20 years ago, people say there haven't been many changes in Hollywood, but 20 years ago, that show, the way it's cast now, I don't think it would have made it to TV. I mean, to say nothing of the relationship of the two husbands on the show, former husbands, and me being Lily Tomlin's love interest. I mean, there has been some major changes, and I think sometimes we need to acknowledge that. But yeah, that and the audience loved that relationship. I'm amazed at the response that people have regarding me and Lily. It's great.
Absolutely. Yeah. So one of the other questions we're having is from LG wants to know what's been the most challenging role that you played today.
Sometimes I find if I can submerge myself in a role and live that role, then that's fun. That's not difficult. Sometimes it's very difficult to play emotions that I'm not feeling. When I first started acting, producers would want a character who was angry about something, and I didn't see it in the script. To try and deliver what's not there feels dishonest, and it's hard sometimes to do. Most of the work that I've done, I've enjoyed it, even though each one is a little bit different. Um, the Hand That Rocks the Cradle was challenging until I found the character. And I think when you find a character, it's just a part of you, and there's no doing wrong because you are there. But it takes a while to get into that space, and so that was a challenge at first.
All right. So we've got Jess Brandis, and she's tuned in. How you doing, Jess? She's a phenomenal interviewer. I've co-hosted a number of shows with her, radio and otherwise. And Jess, I'm going to unmute you. I know you have a question.
I'm waiting
Hi,
for it. How
Jess.
you doing? Hey, Jazz, how are you?
Doing just great.
Good. Hey, Ernie, nice
Yeah.
to virtually meet you, sir.
Well, yeah, hey, I'm honored. It's great to
I,
meet you
I
too.
am I am a big fan after all these years. But one of my questions is, when you came out of high school, you actually joined the Marine Corps. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, I joined the Marines. In fact, I joined in April. I graduated in June,
Hmm.
and they were nice enough to wait for me until I graduated from high school, I thought. And 2 days later, I was, flown to San Diego and to start my military career.
Wow. Now, after that, and knowing how things now have progressed, just in the world and in this country, are you kind of
Right.
glad that your life took this other turn and led you into acting instead?
Instead of,
Instead of, continuing with a military type of career.
yeah, I think sometimes things are. I joined the Marine Corps kind of very naive. I hadn't heard of Vietnam. This was in 1964. And when I
Right.
got there, I heard about Vietnam and there was a war that nobody told me about. But I have a shellfish allergy. And somehow, after 10 weeks, I was discharged
Hmm.
from the Marines. I didn't plan that. I was certainly ready to commit um, to be there to serve, but I ended up back in my hometown of Benton Harbor, and I didn't know I'd be an actor. I certainly hadn't planned to be an actor, but I think the universe. I've always believed that the universe guides us,
Hmm.
and that I'm right where I need to be and where I'm supposed to be, and I trust that. So I don't think it was ever a question in terms of what I would have uh, done. I just think that you go in a certain direction, and then something happens, and then you realize that there's another place you need to be. I think guess I wasn't meant to be a military person.
Well, you are a fantastic actor, and we are very, very happy that you are here to join us, Jazz. I'm going to give it back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jess. All right. So if you have a question, just thumbs up me so I can see that you've got a question. I'll unmute you, or you can also write your questions in the chat. We've got a lot of people that are logging in that are from Michigan and Minnesota. So Minnesota, now,
Yes.
Ernie, let's go there. I understand that you've splitting your life between Minnesota, which is probably where you are right now, right?
I'm in Minnesota. I have a house in Minnesota and I have a house in California. I work, most of the work I do, from the family business to Grace and Frankie to LA's Finest, we shoot all that in California. So I need to be there for work. Minnesota, I came here over 40 years ago. I met my wife here. We've been together ever since. We met in '76. And Minnesota has always been a place that I love. I really appreciate the spirit of the people. There's a kindness that I really didn't find anywhere else. And I felt welcome to Minnesota. I've been acting for about 10 years before I came to Minnesota, but Minnesota, I was in a play and it was the first time I felt welcome. I mean, really valued as an actor. So I love Minnesota. Recent events have happened that it just seems unreal to me because of all the places I've been in America, this is the last place I would expect that. I realize there's a disconnect between law enforcement and the community, but the spirit that I feel in Minnesota from the people that I meet, it's none of that. But that's what's seen, and it's really unfortunate. But I know that Minnesota is a very progressive place, and I know that the people are genuine in terms of Sorry about that. My phone is
I'm glad it wasn't me.
okay. Yeah, it's. I know that there's a definite willingness to work through some of these things, and I have faith in that. I have faith that sometimes it takes something truly tragic and traumatic for us to realize that we're making choices and that we need to recognize that those choices have consequences and we can make better choices. And I have faith that we're going to make better choices, uh, that we're moving to a better place. We'll see.
So you're a father of four sons. What kind of conversations are you having with your sons around?
Well,
Um,
I have four
current
sons.
situation? Yeah.
My first two sons, my oldest son is 54. My second son is 51. So
Well, you're the same age as your son.
that's, yeah, they're grown. You know, we
Yeah.
have, they sit me down and talk to me now. So,
Okay.
but
Fantastic.
my two younger boys are 30 and 31. Um, Obviously, we talk about life and things that are going on in the world and in the community. There's awareness. I think it's very important to have a conversation, but I also think it's very important not to make that conversation so hard that they begin to expect a certain thing, because when you expect things, things tend to happen. I don't want, and I never wanted them to look at law enforcement or anyone else to be an automatic adversary. That to know that people out there, people overwhelmingly have been willing to go out of their way to extend themselves and to be helpful to me. And there are exceptions to that, but I want them to always, and I think my sons are great men, great and wonderful. And I, just common sense. I think they're aware that
Okay.
I think
Well,
that
what
for
about you
me,
personally? Go ahead. What about you personally in terms of your relationship as a Black man in Hollywood? Have you ever faced racism?
yeah, I think we've well, I don't say we've certainly there has been racism that the attempt by people to. I grew up. My grandmother raised me. I didn't know my dad. Never met my dad, and my mom died when I was 3 months old. So I never really knew her. But I had a grandmother who raised me, who really made an effort to teach me that even though we didn't know my biological father, that God was my father. And I would say, but God is everybody's father. And she said, but everybody don't know it. You have to know who you are. And you have to know that God is aware of you, and that is who you trust, not the industry, not the intent of people who come into your life, but the universe will direct you if you can quiet yourself and listen. And that's always worked for me. So I've encountered racism. I think I've encountered people who had not the best intentions, but I've also seen change in people. And some of those same people turned out to be friends. And so I think there's just not wanting to get locked into a thing of knowing before people have a chance to sort of reveal themselves. And every time I felt like I know what this is about and I want to react, it turns out to be something. I almost went off on a man at a restaurant who was staring at me, and I just thought, this is the biggest racist, and I'm going to get in his face. And before I could say anything, he asked me for an autograph, and he said he was a big fan.
Oh, wow.
So it's, you don't know. We can't know what someone else is feeling. And I've learned that as much as I can get out of judgment, thinking I know what somebody's feeling, the better off I am, because a lot of times I'm wrong. There is a connection that we have. We can't make that connection if we're in judgment, if we're prejudging each other.
All right. All right. So we have a question about how you first got into acting.
Yes.
I think we've got several with that same question.
How I first, well, I grew up, I always say we were probably about as poor as you can get, grew up in the projects. Um, I always say I know what it's like to not have food to eat, but I don't know what it's like to not have hope. I've always believed that, like I said, God is with me. All I got to do is ask the question and the answer is there. So I knew growing up I wanted to do something different than my relatives who are amazing people, poor working class people who, I picked fruit in the fields. We did, surviving that way. But I was looking for something. I tried several jobs after high school, finally got it into college. And by accident, I walked into a play one night and I was blown away. I just could not believe that you could do that. And I wanted more than anything I asked God if I can do that, to be an actor. And I made certain promises that if you give me the opportunity to be an actor, I'll honor it. I'll show up on time. I'll be prepared. I'll do my part. My part is to prepare. And I've always tried to do that. That was in Detroit. I started in Detroit and did a lot of theater. I got a scholarship to Yale grad school. I did some work at the University of Minnesota. Did a lot of plays. Came out to Hollywood off and on, and finally started working. But during that time, I was a single dad and trying to build a career and still, be there for my kids. I know that's kind of a roundabout answer, but life happens. So
life does happen. We also have a question wanting to know what's your preference of roles, comedy or drama?
I'm sorry, say it again.
So your preference, comedy or drama?
Well, when I decided I wanted to be an actor, I knew that it was something I wanted to do for the rest of my life. This is my calling, my ministry, so to speak. And in order to do that, I knew I had to be prepared to do what was necessary. I had an instructor who told me that I would never get a job because I was so good looking, because I wasn't that good looking. And I would never get a job because of friends, because I didn't have that many friends. So he said, you better be good. So I think as an actor, you need to be prepared to do comedy, to do drama, to do stage, to do animation, I got to go to work. And so my job is to show up and show out, and to know that I'm cast because I like to believe I'm the best person for the role, and not because some external reason that.
So the role you play between Jacob in Grace and Frankie, which is a comedy, and it also touches on some very complicated and serious topics here and there. But you also play L.C. Duncan, who's a real badass. I'm sorry, he's a crime guy. This guy is absolutely phenomenal. So it's in the family business. It's a BET series. It is outstanding. It just grips you in. So if there's anyone that's tuned in right now and you're not familiar with the family business, I think we have a clip. So you get an idea of how you've actually transitioned from that comedic role into a very dramatic role, a serious dramatic role. Do we have the clip, Shelley?
The reason we're all here today is because we do a lot of business together.
You miss me?
We're ramping up production.
Hard to believe she tried to kill us.
Bang, bang.
Now she's like family.
You do not know who you're playing with. Start talking, bitch.
I'm going forward with my business plan.
But how you gonna keep him away from me?
I want a divorce.
I want Junior Duncan dead by the end of the week. Don't get it twisted. I'm still a dunk.
You are sitting on a gold mine.
Perhaps it is time to bring some of your good friends in as partners. Let me make myself clear. Heat belongs to the Duncans. Anyone who doesn't understand that,
Wow. That is a far cry. We've got a lot of claps going on. Thank you, thank you. That is a far cry from Ghostbusters. That's a far cry from Grace and Frankie. So please take us into that acting realm with you.
Well, I think, like I said, as an actor, we're all of it. You know, we're all so connected. We're a lot of things. A lot of actors don't play a lot of range because we don't get the opportunity to play that. Carl Weber, who's wrote a series of books on the family business that this is based on, best-selling books. He's an amazing writer. He got in touch with me and said the things that I love to hear when anybody approaches me for work, that he was a fan of mine and he wanted me on the show. I read this script and I knew that I wanted to be a part of this. I'm one of the executive producers on the show, and my job pretty much is to get it out there, to get it done and get the quality so that it's something that we're all proud of. It's an amazing cast. Honestly, it is so much fun. The character, though, growing up the way I grew up in the projects, I spent more time in church. So you want to be the nice kid that my grandmother is proud of, but you still got to walk the streets. And there's a defense, there's a part of you that you have to be taken serious. And that's Elsie Duncan for me. He's, you know, it's like sometimes, you know, it's just me and you. And this is a family though that, and the reason I wanted to see the show out there is that this is a Black family that's non-apologetic. They're at the top of the game. They're a family that has one resolve. They're the owners of the largest exotic car dealership in the country, but they also are a mob family. I just love seeing the relationships. But at the heart of it, it's about family. It's about the love of family. Valerie Pettiford, who's played my wife a couple times over the years, but she's stunning, she's beautiful, she's powerful. I love it when I work with actors, and if I ever get a little kind of lazy, they step it up and I have to go, okay, all right. So it's a great cast, and I can't say enough about it, but it's very, very different, like you said, than Ghostbusters. And, you know, but I think I'm very, very proud of it. I work with Gabrielle Union and Jessica Alba on a show called LA's Finest, and a very, very different character, a guy who's been estranged from his daughter, and how do we resolve that? How do we go forward? Those issues they have to work through, and I love that show. But it's a very different guy than Grace and Frankie, and it's definitely a different guy than Elsie Duncan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things I recognize with the casting on the family business, you guys actually look like family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Oftentimes there's such a disconnect, but they could be your sons and daughters.
Well, you know, that's one thing that Black people are always aware of. When I see a show and I'm looking at this, I'm kind of, there's no way that kid came out of that guy, those people. You know what I mean? It's like, that ain't happening. So, but yeah, no, this is a family, and they're beautiful. You know what I mean? The cast is, you know, and because they're non-apologetic and they're living a lifestyle, I love we got a great wardrobe, a dream, can't think of her last name, but the look of the show is beautiful. I'm so proud of the show. And I haven't done a lot of the quote unquote Black movies, you know, not by choice, but for whatever reason. So it's nice to play in this kind of drama.
Absolutely. So you're just entering the second season with that, right?
Second season on BET Plus. It's it's BET of special. I don't totally understand all that, but it's BET Plus.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
We were in the middle of production, and because of COVID, we had to shut down halfway through. So we're like Hollywood, trying to figure out how do we go back, but hopefully they'll be resolved soon.
So speaking of COVID, let's double back to that. What's going on in your life for the past 4 months? We're entering into this. Have you found that you're catching up on things around the house, the family? Take us there.
Well, I always said the reason I don't get things done is because I don't have enough time. I now realize that's not true. It's because I got a lot of time, but I'm still not getting a whole lot of stuff done. Um, but you know, when this came up and they were talking about shutting down the end of February, I flew to Minnesota because I didn't want to get stuck in LA and be away from my family. So we've been sort of waiting. I feel very disappointed that there hasn't been a unified messaging on the part of the authorities, you know, just, yeah, that they would be unified so we could all deal with some specifics. Things seem to be changing every day. And I know that's a little bit because we don't know what this is, but also a lot of it has to do with nonsense. And that to me is very, very unfortunate. So we're all kind of trying to be normal and yet it's not normal. And at a certain point, I realized that this is a chance for me to reboot, to just take a look and say, okay, we will never get back to our old normal. We'll talk about that when we say the good old days. But what the new normal will look like, I think we're still waiting to find out.
Awesome, awesome. So we've got a lot of questions. So now is an opportunity to kind of run through some of the questions from our viewers. We thank you very much for your patience. So we're going to run through, and let me tell you, there's more than 30 questions sitting here. So we'll try to get through as many as we can.
I'll give fast answers. I promise I won't go too long.
Absolutely. So of course, we've got comments and people are just stating that they're incredibly humbled to take part in this event. And I'm sure that you've heard many times that people love your work, absolutely love your work. So you've got somebody here that says that you share the same birthday, your birthday twins, December 17th.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, all right. So that came from Alicia Renee Hendricks.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
it's been a good birthday, Sagittarius. You know, I suppose everybody feels the same way about their birth sign, but I just think Sagittarius are the best, but it's just me. So happy,
Okay.
glad we share the same birthday.
Awesome stuff. It's pre-COVID. All right. So Alicia wants to know your favorite part about filming Frankie, Grace and Frankie.
Well, but you know, once it's, like I said, the favorite part for me is to be able to be on the set, to be able to work with that incredible cast. Also, I love the character because a lot of times I'll play a guy who is, you know, he's struggling with this or that. The Jacob on that show is just a guy. I love just being a guy. He's not trying to be a whole bunch of, he ain't angry with anything. He's just a man who just loves this woman and he's easy. And I don't get a chance to play those normal guys a lot. So I love doing the show. Just, I love the character because he's a guy. He's just, yeah, he's not a bad guy. He's not a superhero. He's not in charge of anything. He's just a guy who is having a good life.
Awesome. LG wants to know that you enjoy your role in Once Upon a Time.
Yeah, I once upon a time, you know, it's all that kind of fantasy, superhero, comic, you know, I love doing that. I've done some, not as much as I'd like to. I've been sort of sending messages to Marvel saying, hey guys, but I love working on that. I thought there would be more episodes. I'm disappointed that there wasn't, but playing Poseidon on that show was fun. The biggest thing for me now is about the fun. Money is nice, especially if I'm not having fun. It's nice to know the money's there. But it was a lot of fun, and I enjoy. That's what I look for now.
Okay, okay. So we've got an interesting question from Matthew Woods. He wants to know if you have to spend a life in your afterlife as a ghost, what place would you like to haunt?
Wow, what place would I like to haunt? That's an interesting question. I've never been asked that. I don't know. I guess if I had to spend my afterlife as a ghost, maybe I'd like to see some of the places I haven't seen. You know, I mean, I've been places and I've seen some things, but I know there's a lot of stuff out there I haven't checked out. So I'd like to see some of that, those places that I haven't had a chance to explore. because of work, because of, we live our lives, and I've had a wonderful life. But maybe, there's other worlds out there that would be great to explore.
Okay, so we've got a question from Rita Balanca, and she wants to know, what are your memories about working on Law and Order?
Well, Apatha Murkison played my fiance on the show. I won't say I was a fan of Law and Order. I haven't watched a lot of them, but I enjoyed the shows when I did watch them. And it was a character who was there supportive of her in her battle with cancer.
Mhm.
And I liked, once again, being that guy who is sometimes with the voice I have or the physicality, I'll get roles of authority. It's nice to just play a character who's just a guy. And I did not want to do Law and Order and be a bad guy on it, and I didn't want to be a cop on it. So it was just nice to be there and be there for her.
Okay, so this question is coming in from Matt Naz, and he says, as a successful playwright, what advice would you give an aspiring novelist?
Well, novels is something I don't totally understand, but I would say when it comes to writing, because I went to Yale as a playwriting student, and I'm sad to say I don't really write much anymore, and I don't even talk about it anymore because I always wake up disappointed that I didn't do what I said I was going to do. I think if you're going to write, to write. I think you have to be about writing, and the more you write, just to write. When you stop writing and you start talking about it, you just remove yourself from that. I think if you're a writer, write.
So Christine Fisher says that if your career ended tomorrow, God forbid, what's the most cherished memory or role that you've accomplished?
Well, I think they're all sort of cherished for different reasons. I love the character in Congo, being the leader of the safari. I love the Hand that Rocks the Cradle. I love working in The Crow. They're all really very, very special. I think if my career were to end tomorrow, I'd like to say, I've been blessed. I asked for something, and I have been given the opportunity to live that dream, that life. And I've been aware enough to appreciate it while it was happening. So I have nothing to prove. I'd love to see a role come along that would define my career. That hasn't happened. But no matter what happens from this point, I almost died of cancer about 10 years ago. And actually, I came very close to dying. And I think you come to certain realities. And what I had to realize is that whatever I hadn't done, I had to be okay with that. And that's how I feel now. I've worked hard. I've given, the best of what I have. And I'd like to do more. But if God makes a decision, then I'm okay with that. I'm good.
So we've got a kind of Me Too question coming up here, Me Too movement question, but they
Yes.
put this script. So Diane O'Hara wants to know, have you ever been sexually harassed on, producing or playing in a film? And if so, were you able to report it or tell someone?
There are times that perhaps I felt, maybe sexually harassed. It's kind of hard to identify that. I'm a guy, so, I did report an incident that happened in a doctor's office. It's one of those things that it's very personal, and you deal with it the way that. But I think what's important is to let people know when they've crossed the line. I've heard so many people say, "Well, nobody says I didn't know," and it's hard to. And I think after this pandemic, it's going to be even harder to identify those lines. What's acceptable? What's not acceptable? Why are you know, did you enjoy that joke? Am I being charming? Am I being a jerk? You know, where is that? I'm not making excuses, but I think we need to give clear signals as best we can. Sometimes we feel vulnerable and we can't, but yeah, I think like I said, I try to. Um, my grandmother says, see people through the eyes of Christ, which means seeing their perfection. So I'd like to give people the benefit of the doubt. I find most people, even if it is offensive, may not necessarily intend for it to be. Um, but it helps to get get clear signals so that, and then when you go beyond that, then I know you're doing what I think you're doing, as opposed to my imagination is incredible at 3 o'clock in the morning. I'll wake up and I went, oh, hell no.
Oh, wow. So
You
we
know,
got
so
another question.
yeah, so I just think it's, I think we all have on some level. And yeah, I think we be honest about it and recognize that not everyone is strong enough to be able to speak up, or feel strong enough, I should say.
Well, thank you for that. Thank you for your honesty. Um, Diane O'Hara, and she's on a roll. She wants to know who was your role model growing up.
Well, role model, you know, not having a dad, I used to always try to find these men who would adopt me, and of course, nobody ever would. You know, it's like I would kind of follow men around. They would say, "Get away from me, kid! I'm not your dad," and I'd feel bad. And I kind of, but I had my uncles who were all different and interesting in their own way. And of course, there's biblical characters that you kind of go to aspire to be. Uh, I think Westerns, TV, you know, the media shapes us in a lot of ways. The Westerns, especially, to be a man, to be noble, to do, you know, you pick up bits and pieces. What does that mean? Because I didn't have a dad who I could pattern off of. And then my sons, when my sons were born, my first two sons, I think I learned about fatherhood through them, you know, and yeah, and it's still a work in progress. I mean, but a role model, there's not been anybody who I said, this is my hero and I want to do, there are people I admire, but I also know that people are very flawed. So they're, you know, there are parts I like and other parts not so much.
We have a number of actors and budding actors that are actually on now. A very successful actor, Electra Dunmundy, wants to let you know that you were her inspiration in getting into acting, and she just wants to thank you.
Oh, that means a lot. And just, I wish you all the best. Hopefully we'll get a chance to work together someday, but just, you know, trust the universe, trust your spirit and listen, because it will definitely guide you where you need to be.
Next question is from Cheryl Snyder. I think we already touched on it in terms of how the pandemic is affecting your ability to work. You want to expand on that a little bit?
Well, I mean, it's affecting all of us. I mean, how safe is it to get out there? And we've been, as one of the producers, we've been trying to figure this out. And a lot of people are in a hurry to do it, but there's a part of me that, you know, says, I don't want to be someplace if it's not safe. You know, I want to make sure that not for, I mean, for everybody, but especially for myself as well. I got a call the last day we worked, and they wanted to know if it was okay if I wanted to come in and at least finish the episode we were working on. And I was very flattered that they asked me. And then I realized they asked me because I was the oldest person on the set, which is
Ageism. What are we going to do? Ageism.
yeah, I appreciate it. I sometimes forget that, but yeah, you know, who knows? I don't. There's so many mixed signals out there. I don't understand why everybody just can't wear a mask and be done with it. But that's just me. You know, I don't get it. But hey, so we're still, the industry is trying to figure it out. I know we will figure it out, but there's just a lot of mixed messaging, and that's unfortunate.
Okay, so we've got another question from Diane O'Hara. She wants to know, have you ever been turned down for a role because you were not white?
I don't think any actor working, or maybe that's not true. I don't think many people know why they are working. You know, you got the job, you think it's because you're really that good. I don't know. You got the job. And I also don't think you know why you're not working. You know, there have been roles that I lost to someone who I felt certainly wasn't as talented as I thought I was. There have been roles I've lost to, and I went to see the show and it was a woman. And sometimes I went to see it and it was a white guy, or, you know, so I don't know. I think things work out the way they should. I
So
think,
we've got so many questions piling up here. I want to be very, very mindful of your time. I want to be mindful of our host time as well.
right.
So we've been rolling right along for almost an hour here, and I
Oh,
do
really?
want to
Wow.
thank you. So let us know how you are on time. We've got literally another 20 questions in the queue for you. That's a lot of information. Some of them I'm going to skip because we've already talked a bit about your
Okay.
experiences, etc. So I'm going to just feel right through. But one person in particular, I think you know, Rita Patel, she has
Yeah.
a request for you to share one of the most unusual or funny things that happened to you during a celebrity appearance. So why don't you share that while I kind of filter through some of these additional questions?
Okay. Well, it's interesting. Rita always asks me to tell this story. And apparently, the first time I told it was really funny. Now I can't remember totally why it was funny, but uh, you know, as an actor, I get asked to do a lot of things, and I've always been taught that it's important. If you want God to bless you, then you should bless others. You let God use you to bless. So I was doing an event, and a lady came up and said they had a charity event, and would I host it for them for foster children? And I said yes. So when the time came, I flew up to San Francisco. It was going to be in San something or other. It didn't matter. I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. And she picked me up at the airport and took me to the hotel. And then it was time to go to the event. I had a tuxedo that was really fitting, and so I didn't want to carry a lot of things in my pocket. So I just got rid of the phone and everything because it was just going to be a couple hours. And I went to the event and I think did a great job. When the event was over, she came up to me and she said, "That was really great, and it's been an amazing response. Are you going to need a ride back to the hotel?" Now they had a limo pick me up and take me there, and I said, "What happened to the limo?" She said, "Well, he had another job." And I said, "Well, yeah, because I don't, I need a ride." And so someone was listening and they said, "Oh, we'll take him to the hotel." And she said, "Fine." So I got in the car with these people to go to the hotel. And then I assumed they knew where the hotel was, but they didn't. And I didn't know which hotel it was. And I didn't have my, you know, my wallet and my phone, and so I'm in. It's a lot of sands up near San Francisco, San Marino, Santa, whatever, and I have no idea. So they said, "What hotel?" And I said, "Well, I think it was a Marriott." And the guy says, "Oh, I know where it is." And so he drives up to this hotel, which looks a little strange, but and so I get out of the car, and then as I'm trying to figure out, he leaves. And so I go into the hotel lobby, and it's not the hotel. I knew when I walked in it wasn't a hotel, but when I come out, it's gone. And so I think I had like $50 or something. I was because I just took, you know, and so now I'm not at the hotel. I don't know where the hotel is, but I'm laughing at it because I know I'm going to be fine. I know it's going to work itself out. But I so there was a taxi. So the one guy said, "Well, it's probably this hotel the way you describe it." So I went to his taxi and I had him take me to this hotel, which cost 40, almost the $50. And I got there and it was the wrong hotel. And so we called around, and no one would say that Ernie Hudson was there because of privacy. They wouldn't admit. And then one guy, and I said, I'm Ernie Hudson. And he said, well, I can't say if Ernie Hudson is staying here, but so now I need to get to that hotel, but I have no money. And the cab driver, luckily, was still outside and took me there. And then I realized that if you're going to do these celebrity things, you need to pay attention to where you are. And,
Absolutely.
so yeah, it was, I've had experiences like that, and I have no idea who's responsible, but it worked. It always works out. It always works out.
Well, Ernie, I'll tell you, I would be amiss if I didn't mention, and maybe our other viewers know this, you've been married for over 35 years. That's phenomenal. That's absolutely phenomenal. So
Yeah.
what keeps that relationship going and so strong?
Well, my wife is amazing. And because I was married once before, I was married for a long time. I've been married my whole life for the most part. But that marriage was very difficult, and we were kids, but it was so challenging that when it was over, I'd never want to do that again. As a result, my wife, now we were together almost 10 years before I finally said, okay, let's marry.
Wow.
But my wife has allowed me an opportunity to grow and to learn, and she's been very patient with me. I'd like to think I've done the same for her, but I know that she's I don't think, in fact, I always say that I don't think there's been a day in my life that I haven't doubted that I was loved. My grandmother loved me, and I knew it, and I believe my wife does, or she's very convincing. And I appreciate her and her kindness, but she's been just very patient. And so I think the friendship, life is such a gift, and to be able to share that gift with someone is just, I just got a lot of thanks. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I think that's a beautiful note to wrap up on. There's a lot of comments in the queue about what an amazing guy you are, what an inspiration you are, a highly motivating, positive person, and how much they appreciate your time this evening. I see a lot of smiles. I hope you do too. I want everybody to just start waving and thumbs upping, because not for nothing, you've just been absolutely incredible this evening. I want to thank you. I want everyone to make sure that you listen to our host, who's going to give you some closing statements. Back to you now, Shelley.
I have to do this because this one fan has been very patient. He wrote to us. He's been writing it in the chat. And I know there's so many questions, but I said to him, I promise you, I'm going to make sure he answers this one question. So Bryant, I'm going to try to unmute you. You can ask Ernie, and I don't mean to take it one step further, but can you unmute yourself, Bryant? There we go. Go for it.
Real quick, Mr. Hudson, it's an honor. Sullivan, what did you do to prepare for that role, the hand that rocks the cradle?
Well, when I read the script, I knew I wanted to do this role, but the role was written for a white guy who was Irish, 5 foot. The script described him as a 5'8" Irish guy with freckles, and that's not me. But I really got on my agent and just kept pushing to get an audition, and I got the audition. And the studio thought I was all wrong, because in the end of my battery's probably low. There, maybe that. I'm sorry. Some of my thing. So finally I was able to convince the studio to give me the role. But then, in preparing for the role, I visited a lot of the schools and that had mentally disabled people. I met with a lot of them, and I got to know one young man who was very similar, high functioning to the character that I played. And I just felt that it was important to to do this role right, because it could be. So I just worked until I felt him in my heart. I always felt Solomon was the better part of me. That part of me that when I was working picking fruit as a kid, and one of the guys, the men overseer, he kicked me, and I fell back and hit my head. To be mentally disabled is to be locked at a certain age, and I thought, what would have happened if I didn't sort of grow beyond that? So, yeah. So it was really trying to find. But once it's there, once he was there, um, yeah,
It was a
I
great
love
role.
I
Thank
love
you
that
so
experience.
much.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And also, I want to say to everybody, I really appreciate you guys coming together in this forum. And but I don't, I know you have a lot of different guests, but I'm honored to be able to share this. But I just think it's great that we're finding ways to communicate and have conversations. And I just appreciate all of you. So thank you for inviting me.